Alright, hey, this video is going to go over section 1A, which is about collecting and classifying data. So data is everywhere. We see it in the news all over the place. You are very familiar with looking at data, but the better that you understand how data is collected and where it came from, you can do some things with data to manipulate what it says. And so if you understand how data is collected, you can spot that manipulation and see what people are trying to do when they're presenting data. Okay, so we're going to look at two different types of data sets. We have a population and a sample. So a population is a collection of all of the outcomes. So that's the key word there, it's all. So if I'm talking about the United States, the population of the United States is every single person in the US, whereas a sample is a little piece of a population. So if the population is the United States, a sample could be the people that live in Virginia. That's a subset, a part, a piece of the population of the United States. All right. And then when we have data about a population or a sample, we call them different things. So if the data is about a population, we call it a parameter. And if the data is about a sample, then we call it a statistic. All right. So example of a parameter would be if the population is the United States and I said 52% of the people in the United States are female. That 52% number, that would be a parameter. It's a numerical description of the population. All right. A statistic is a description of a sample. So if I took a sample of people at a football game and said 41% of them were female, that would be a statistic because I'm talking about a sample and not the entire population. There are two different types of data that we can collect, qualitative data and quantitative data. All right, so qualitative data is stuff that is describing. All right, so here's an example talking about coffee. Qualitative data would be the aroma, the appearance, how does it taste, what kind of cup is it in. All right. Quantitative data then is numbers. There's 12 ounces, the temperature, how tall is the cup, how much does it cost. All right, so in general, qualitative data is not numbers, and quantitative data is numbers. However, there are some exceptions. All right, not everything that's a number is automatically quantitative data. What you have to ask yourself is, are these actual numbers, are they measurements, or are they just using numbers to identify things? So here's an example of room numbers. All right, it has a list of the room numbers in this department. If I take the mean or the average of these room numbers, does that tell me anything about the rooms? All right, the answer would be no, because the room numbers are just identifiers. Another good example of this is like your social security number. All right, if we got 12 people in the room and took the average of their social security numbers, it wouldn't really tell us anything about that group of people. All right, because the numbers are just used to identify them. So a good rule is to ask yourself, would it make sense to take an average of these numbers? If it does not, then your data is probably qualitative even though it contains numbers. In this class, we're going to look at 4 different methods of collecting data. So the first one is an observational study. All right, so we're just going to observe and measure what's going on without changing the condition. So a lot of times you'll see this like in psychology or sociology. We're just going to kind of observe people or places or events and record what happens. We're not going to get involved in the situation and change it in any manner. All right, so maybe we wanted to know what students are wearing to school. So we're just going to stand out by where the buses come in and just write down what people are wearing, okay? That would be an observational study. An experiment, now that's what you're used to in your science classes, in chemistry and science fair and all that stuff in elementary school, where we're given one group the red drink and one group the blue drink, and then we're seeing the differences between the two. All right, so that's an experiment. You've seen that before in your science classes. Simulation, we're using a mathematical or a physical model. An example of this would be maybe NASA, like when NASA started sending people into space and building space shuttles and satellites and things like that. I don't think that they just spent millions of dollars building a shuttle and hoping that it would work. They ran all kinds of computer models to see, can it get through the atmosphere? What's the right speed? What's the right material? All right, a simulation, we're using some sort of model. A lot of times it's a computer simulation now. All right, and then the last one is a survey. So we're going to investigate one or more things by asking members of a population questions. You guys do this all the time. A Twitter poll. That's a survey. Asking people questions because we want to know how they feel or how they think or how they act in certain situations. All right, that is it for data collection and classification.